The rain in Hell's Kitchen does not wash the grime away. It just makes the sidewalks slick and treacherous. You are standing in the doorway of room 314, shivering in your damp trench coat, trying to ignore the flickering neon sign outside that buzzes like a trapped insect. It is November 2012. The world is changing. People are staring at their smartphones, obsessed with applications and connectivity. But here in this room, death feels ancient and cold. Your partner, Detective Miller, stands by the window. He looks pale. He has seen bodies before, hundreds of them, but he turns to you and whispers, "It is too clean." He is right. There is no blood on the walls. There are no signs of a struggle. The victim, a man in his late 20s, lies on the bed with his hands folded over his chest. He looks peaceful, almost like an effigy in a cathedral, except for the cheap polyester bedspread beneath him. In this precinct, murder is usually a messy, passionate thing. A bottle broken in a bar fight, a domestic dispute that went too far. This is different. This is distinct. It feels curated. You step closer. The air smells of industrial bleach and ozone. You snap your latex gloves on, the sound loud in the silence. You lean over the victim. His eyes are closed, but his jaw is slightly slack. Something white catches the dim light inside his mouth. With a pair of forceps, you gently pry the jaw open. It is not a pill. It is not a bag of narcotics. It is a slip of paper, high-quality, heavy stock paper, cut with surgical precision into a perfect rectangle. You lift it out, holding it up to the light. It is dry. It was placed there after death. On the paper, typed in a sharp, serif font, is a string of characters. Not a name, not a threat. A code. You have heard rumors from the Vice Squad about a hidden part of the internet, a silk road where anonymity is the currency. But as you stare at that nonsensical string of letters and numbers resting on a dead man's tongue, you get a sinking feeling that the digital world has just breached the physical one. This is not just a murder. It is a receipt. The slip of paper sits on your desk under the harsh, humming fluorescent lights of the 10th precinct. It looks innocent enough. Just a rectangle of white stock, barely larger than a fortune cookie message, with that nonsensical string of characters typed across the center. You've been staring at it for an hour. The coffee in your styrofoam cup has gone cold, forming a stagnant, oily film on the surface. Detective Miller is sitting across from you, rubbing his temples. He looks exhausted. The rain outside is still hammering against the window panes, a relentless gray static that seems to seep into the room. "It is junk," Miller says, his voice gravelly with fatigue. He gestures vaguely at the evidence bag. "It is a password for a porn site, or a locker combination, or gibberish. We are chasing ghosts while the trail freezes." Miller wants this to be simple. He wants a jealous lover or a drug debt gone wrong. He wants the world to make sense in the way it did 20 years ago, before everyone carried a tracking device in their pocket, and the internet became a second nervous system for the human race. But you cannot shake the feeling of that hotel room, the smell of bleach, the positioning of the body, and this paper, placed with the reverence of a communion wafer. You ignore Miller. You pick up the evidence bag and walk out of the squad room, navigating the labyrinth of desks until you reach the heavy steel door at the rear of the hallway. This is the domain of the Technical Crimes Unit. The air inside is different. It is warmer, recycled, and dry, smelling of ozone and heated plastic. The hum here is not from lights, but from cooling fans spinning inside towers of black metal. Officer Chen is at his station. He is young, barely 25, with a kind of restless intelligence that makes traditional police work boring for him. He is currently surrounded by 3 monitors, his face bathed in a blue-white glow. You place the bag on his desk. "I need you to run this string. Not through the standard databases. Go deeper." Chen looks at the paper, then at you. He adjusts his glasses. "This format," he murmurs. "It is not a bank routing number. It is not an internet protocol address. It looks like a hash." "A hash," you ask. "An encrypted identifier," Chen says. He starts typing, his fingers moving across the keyboard with a fluid, rhythmic speed. You watch the news. You hear about the Silk Road. You nod. The newspapers call it the Amazon of Vice, a hidden marketplace where you can buy narcotics with digital currency, shipped right to your door in vacuum, sealed envelopes. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is obsessed with it. They say it is a haven for libertarians and anarchists, a place where the laws of the physical world dissolve. "It is not just for drugs anymore," Chen says, his voice lowering. "There are rumors, forums, places where people trade. Other things, Ideas, fantasies. He hits a key. A progress bar appears on the center screen. I pulled an image of a Silk Road server seized in Iceland 3 days ago. It is fragmented, but if this string is a key, it might unlock a cached page. You wait. The room feels claustrophobic. The fans were louder. Then the screen flashes. Green text on a black background. Got it, Chen says. It is not a transaction receipt. It is a thread ID, a forum post. He expands the window. The text is plain, unadorned. The user's handle is Agathon. The timestamp is from 2 weeks ago. Read it, you say. Chen leans forward, squinting. Title, The Clean Sleep. Description. Subject is male, 28 years old. Location, cheap hospitality. Urban center method, asphyxiation via nitrogen gas, administered during sleep. No struggle, no panic, post-event. Clean surfaces with industrial-grade sodium hypochlorite. Position the subject supine, hands clasped over the solar plexus. Leave the marker. The blood drains from your face. The room seems to tilt. Sodium hypochlorite, you whisper. Bleach. It continues, Chen says, his voice trembling slightly. It lists the exact brand of bleach found under the sink in the hotel. It describes the thread count of the sheets. It describes the rain. You stare at the screen. This was not a report written after the murder. This was posted 2 weeks before the victim died. The killer did not just commit a crime, they were following a script. Someone named Agathon wrote a scene, a detailed architectural fantasy of death, and published it on an anonymous board. And then someone else, your killer, bought into the fantasy and made it real. Chen looks at you, his eyes wide. Is this a commission? Did someone pay for this? No, you say, the realization settling in your gut like a stone. It is not a hit, it is an audition, or a performance. Imagine if this happened to you. You are a detective used to crimes of passion, greed, or desperation. You understand why a husband hits his wife, or why a junkie robs a liquor store. Those are human failures. But this is mechanical. A user on the other side of the world types a nightmare into a terminal, and a stranger in your city acts it out. The motive has been outsourced. Chen highlights the username Agathon. I can try to trace the digital footprint, he says. But on the Onion Router network, it is like trying to trace a whisper in a hurricane. I might find a time zone, maybe a language pattern, but it will take days. You have a choice. You can pour every resource the department has into hunting this digital ghost, chasing pixels and encrypted signals that might lead nowhere. Or you can return to the physical world, to the rain and the grime, and hope that traditional police work can catch a killer who treats murder like a piece of open-source software. Do it, you tell Chen. Find him. Just then, the door to the unit bursts open. It is Miller. He is not looking at you with skepticism anymore. He looks sick. Captain needs us, Miller says. Now. I am busy, you say, not turning away from the screen. No, Miller says. You are not. We have another one. You turn slowly. Another what? Body, Miller says. Midtown, a penthouse apartment. The patrol officers say it is weird. The guy is sitting at his dining table. There is a dinner set for 2, but he is dead. No marks. And, you ask, though you already know the answer, you can feel the cold logic of the pattern tightening around your throat. Miller swallows hard, and there is something in his mouth. You look back at the screen, at the glowing green letters of Agathon's profile. You know with sickening certainty that if you scroll through the forum history, you will find another post, another script, another fantasy waiting to be born into the world of flesh and blood. The digital world is not just bleeding into yours, it is overwriting it. The elevator doors slide open with a soft, expensive hush, revealing the interior of the Midtown penthouse. This crime scene is an entire world away from the grimy hotel room where you started this week. The air here smells of seasoned oak, lobster thermidor, and expensive cologne. The only sound is the rhythmic drumming of rain against the floor to ceiling glass that overlooks the city skyline. Arthur Vance, a 62-year-old hedge fund manager, sits at the head of his mahogany dining table. He is dressed in a tuxedo. His posture is rigid, almost formal, his hands resting on his lap. He looks like he is waiting for a toast that will never come. He is dead. There is no blood. There is no sign of struggle. Just like the first victim, Vance appears to be part of a tableau. The silverware is aligned with geometric precision. The linen napkin is folded into a perfect swan. And there, tucked beneath the base of a crystal wine glass, is the calling card. It is another slip of white paper, bearing another string of alphanumeric nonsense. You stare at the dead man's face. His expression is serene, terrifyingly so. The medical examiner suspects a neurotoxin, likely administered in the wine, but they will need to run toxicology to be sure. What you know for certain is that this is not the same method of operation as the hotel murder. That was asphyxiation and bleach. This is poison and fine dining. It does not make sense, Miller says, standing by the window. He refuses to look at the body. Different victim profile, different method, different neighborhood. The only link is the paper. You bag the slip of paper carefully, and the script you say. You return to the 10th precinct, the rain clinging to your coat like a second skin. The journey to the technical crimes unit feels like a pilgrimage to an oracle. Officer Chen is waiting. He takes the new string of characters and feeds it into the system, his fingers flying across the keys. The cooling fans in the server towers seem to whine in protest. Got it, Chen says. Another hit, same forum, different user. He pulls up the archived post. This one was written by a user named Zoilus. The timestamp is 3 months old. Title: The Silent Patron, Chen reads. Method: paralytic agent introduced via vintage red wine. Setting: formal dining. Victim requirements: male. Authoritative, wealthy, post-mortem. Dress the subject in formal wear. Ensure the room is silent. Leave the marker. The air in the room feels suddenly thin. You lean closer to the screen. The killer followed the instructions of Zoilus just as faithfully as they followed Agathon. They did not just kill Arthur Vance, they fulfilled a request. It is a completionist, you say, the realization tasting like copper in your mouth. We are not hunting a killer with a specific urge. We are hunting a chameleon, someone who is browsing these forums and checking off boxes. Imagine if this happened to you. You spend your career learning to profile predators. You look for the signature, the specific psychological need that drives a person to kill. The sadist likes pain. The narcissist likes control. But what do you do with a killer who has no identity of their own? A killer who wears other people's fantasies like a mask. The department psychiatrist, Dr. Ares, tries to offer you a sliver of hope. She tells you this implies a deep sense of powerlessness. She says the killer is likely a hollow vessel, someone who feels invisible in their daily life and uses these scripts to feel strict, ritualistic control. It is a solid theory. It makes the monster human. But then Chen calls you back to his desk. You need to see this, he says. His face is pale, illuminated by the harsh light of the monitor. I ran a crawler on the forum. I wanted to see how many of these fiction threads exist. He presses a key. The screen fills with a list, then another page, then another. There are thousands, Chen whispers. Thread after thread, the red room, the long walk, suburban silence. Some are just creative writing, but some are detailed blueprints, floor plans, chemical mixtures, escape routes. The floor seems to drop out from beneath you. You are not looking at a crime scene. You are looking at a library, a catalog of potential atrocities written by anonymous ghosts, just waiting for your completionist to check them out. How do you police an archive of imaginary murders? How do you protect a city when the method of death changes with every click of a mouse? Your captain tries to impose order on the chaos. In the center of the squad room, he sets up a large corkboard. He pins the printout of Agathon's post on the left and Zoilus's post on the right. This is his playbook. The captain barks, addressing the room. I want to know what chapter he is turning to next. I want eyes on every purchase of industrial chemicals. I want to know who is buying paralyzing agents. The squad scrambles, but you remain frozen in front of the board. You are torn. On one hand, you have 2 dead bodies in the morgue, a young drifter and a wealthy financier. Traditional detective work says you should find the invisible line connecting them. Did they know each other? Did they share a lawyer, a doctor, a secret? On the other hand, the evidence suggests they are random, just props in a play. If that is true, the victims do not matter. Only the script matters. What would you do? Do you waste precious hours digging into the lives of the dead, hoping for a connection that might not exist? Or do you dive into the digital abyss, reading thousands of violent fantasies, trying to guess which one appeals to the sensibilities of a madman? Miller steps up beside you. He is squinting at the board, his eyes darting between the 2 sheets of paper. Hey, he says, his voice low. Look at this. I am looking, you say. It is a nightmare. No, Miller says. He points a thick finger at the text of the first post, then moves it to the second. Look at the grammar. You lean in. You read the sentences Miller is pointing to. In Agathon's post, ensure the subject is supine semicolon facing the ceiling. In Zoilus's post, pour the wine slowly semicolon, allowing it to breathe. A semicolon, Miller says. In both places, it is wrong. You do not use a semicolon there. You use a comma. You stare at the tiny dot and comma. It is a mistake, a trivial grammatical error. So, you ask, so Miller says, looking at you, his eyes wide with a new, terrifying implication. Agathon and Zoilus are two different accounts, two different writing styles, two different fantasies, but they make the exact same mistake. The noise of the squad room fades into a dull buzz. You look at the thousands of threads Chen found, the infinite library of death. If the error is consistent, then Agathon and Zoilus are the same person. And if they are the same person, then this is not a community of deviants sharing stories. It is one single architect, building a labyrinth of death, waiting for someone to enter. You are staring at a punctuation mark until it begins to float. A semicolon, a dot above a comma. It is the most fragile piece of evidence you have ever pinned your career on. But at 3 in the morning, under the hum of the precinct's fluorescent lights, it looks like a lifeline. Officer Chen runs the search you requested. You are hoping for a handful of results, a small manageable cluster of users who make this specific grammatical error. Instead, the server spits back a deluge. 642 hits, Chen says, rubbing his eyes. It turns out, a lot of people do not know how to use a semicolon detective. It is a common mistake. It is not a fingerprint. It is just bad grammar. Miller is standing behind you, arms crossed. He does not say, "I told you so," but the set of his jaw says it for him. You are chasing ghosts in a machine. Miller says, his voice rough with exhaustion. We have physical bodies in the morgue. We need to be knocking on doors in the financial district. We need to be squeezing the waitstaff who serve that lobster. You are looking for a needle in a stack of needles. He is right. Conventional wisdom says he is right, but you cannot shake the feeling that the answer is not in the physical world. The bodies are just the output. The source code is on that screen. So, you ignore him. You send Miller home to sleep, and you stay. You dive into the digital abyss. You stop looking for just the error. You start reading the content. You immerse yourself in the culture of these forums. It is a toxic, suffocating place. You scroll through manifesto after manifesto, libertarian rage against the banking system, nihilistic treatises on the nature of free will, casual, detached cruelty discussed with the clinical tone of a biology textbook. It is a marketplace of ideas, and most of the merchandise is rotten. Hours bleed into the sunrise. Your eyes burn. The coffee in your cup has turned to cold sludge. But then, you see it. It is a user discussing the ethics of euthanasia. A few threads down, another user is debating the structural integrity of suspension bridges. Different usernames, different topics. But there it is again, the misplaced semicolon, and this time it is paired with something else. We must return to the source from whence we came. He did not know from whence the blow was struck. Whence? An archaic word, pretentious, biblical, old world. You sit up straight, the vertebrae in your back popping. You run a new search, filtering for the semicolon error and the word whence. The 600 hits drop to 12 posts, 4 different usernames. But the voice is identical. It is distinct. It is arrogant. It is the linguistic fingerprint of a single mind. You have him. You have the author. Chen, you shout, forgetting the time. Chen, wake up. Cross-reference these timestamps with the login IPs. I want to know where. The door to the squad room swings open. It is not Chen. A man stands in the doorway. He is wearing a charcoal suit that costs more than your car. He is holding a leather briefcase, and he looks at the chaotic squalor of your precinct with the mild distaste of a health inspector visiting a slaughterhouse. Detective, the man says. He does not ask, he states. Your captain is behind him, looking small and defeated. The captain clears his throat. This is Special Agent Sterling from the Department of Justice. Sterling walks to your desk. He does not offer a hand to shake. He looks at your screen, then at the corkboard, covered in forum printouts. You have been busy, Sterling says. The Silk Road. That is a very ambitious target for a homicide detective. I am investigating a serial murderer, you say, standing up. I have a lead. I have a profile. You have a distraction. Sterling corrects you smoothly. I am part of the multi-agency task force. We have spent 2 years building a case against the administrator of this marketplace, the man known as Dread Pirate Roberts. This is a federal investigation involving the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and Homeland Security. He drops a file on your desk. It lands with a heavy final thud. Your investigation is making noise, Sterling continues. You are poking the hornet's nest. We are trying to catch the queen. If you spook the administrators with a clumsy murder inquiry, they will shut down the servers and vanish. We lose the drugs. We lose the money. We lose the kingpin. You feel the blood rising in your neck. There are people dying, you say, real people, here, in this city, and there are billions of dollars in narcotics moving through those pipes, Sterling counters, his voice devoid of emotion. This is a matter of national security. It is a matter of dismantling a global criminal enterprise. Your 2 bodies are tragic, detective, but they are a rounding error in the grand scheme of things. He leans in close. You can smell mints and dry cleaning chemicals. I am taking jurisdiction, he says. You will transfer all digital evidence to my office. You will cease all inquiries into the Silk Road servers. You will go back to checking alibis and dusting for fingerprints. If I see one more packet request from this precinct hitting those servers, I will have your badge. He reaches out and pulls the printout of the Agathon post from your hands. Imagine the weight in your chest. You just found the key. You just found the word whence that ties the monster together. And now, the institution that is supposed to help you is ordering you to bury it. What would you do? Do you hand it over? Do you trust that the federal government will care about a few weird murders while they are hunting a drug lord? Do you obey the chain of command and let the trail go cold? Or do you copy the data? Do you slide a flash drive into the port while Sterling is looking at the captain? Do you start a shadow file, keeping the investigation alive in the dark, knowing that if you are caught, your career is over? Sterling turns to look at your corkboard one last time. He scans the violent fantasies pinned there. The scripts of death that you know are real. Fantasies, he scoffs, shaking his head. You're chasing fiction, detective. These are just angry kids typing in basements. He turns to leave your office, stepping back out toward the hallway, but he pauses in the doorway, his hand on the frame. But just in case your boogeyman is real, he adds, not looking back at you. Be aware, the users on these forums, they are paranoid, they are tech-savvy, and they watch the news. The door closes behind Special Agent Sterling, and the silence that fills the squad room is heavy enough to choke on. It is the silence of authority asserting itself, the kind that usually signals the end of a career. Your captain looks at the closed door, then at you. He does not say a word. He just taps his temple twice, a universal gesture for be smart, and walks back to his office, closing the blinds. That is all the permission you need. You do not hand over the files. You do not stop. You just go underground. For the next 6 hours, you and Officer Chen turn your workspace into a bunker. You are off the official clock, but the investigation is moving faster than it ever has. The linguistic cluster you isolated, those 12 posts containing the semicolon error, and the word whence leads you to 3 distinct usernames: Agathon, Zoilus, and Lachesis. You start profiling them, pinning their digital footprints to your board. Agathon is the philosopher, justifying murder through twisted logic. Zoilus is the critic, dissecting the artistry of other kills on the forum. But Lachesis is different. Lachesis is the one who measures the thread of life. In Greek mythology, Lachesis decides when the line is cut. The posts from this account are not theoretical. They are cold, logistical, and terrifyingly precise. You are looking at a single mind wearing 3 different masks, holding a conversation with itself about who to kill next. The air in the room is stale, recycled coffee and fear. You are deep in the mind of a psychopath when the door bangs open. It is Miller. He looks alive for the first time in weeks. His tie is loosened, his face flushed with the kind of adrenaline that only comes from old school, pavement-pounding police work. I got it, Miller says, slamming a notepad onto your desk. I actually got it. He ignores the digital spiderweb on your screen. He does not care about usernames or semicolons. A witness in the deli across from the second crime scene, Miller says, breathless. An old lady who feeds stray cats at 3 in the morning. She saw a van. Dark gray, no rear windows. She thought it was a delivery truck, but it was idling for an hour. She saw the driver toss a cigarette out the window. Miller points a thick finger at the notepad. She has cataracts, so she could not see the whole plate, Miller says, grinning. But she got the first 3 characters and the state. New Jersey plates. KL4. I have patrol units running a grid search on every gray van registered in the tri-state area. We have a physical lead, partner, something we can touch. You feel a wave of relief wash over you. It is intoxicating. This is how police work is supposed to be. A witness, a vehicle, a license plate. It is solid. It is real. It is not a ghost in a server farm. For a moment, you let yourself believe that Miller is right, that the answer is on the street, not on the screen. That is great work, Miller, you say, and you mean it. Run it down. Get us an address. Miller turns to the coffee machine, whistling a tune, finally feeling like he is winning. You turn back to your computer to log out, ready to join him in the real world. That is when the screen flickers. You are logged into the New York Police Department, a secure intranet. This is a closed system. It is firewalled. It is supposed to be a fortress, but a window pops up in the center of your monitor. It is not a system error. It is not an email notification. It is a black command box with green text, hovering over your desktop like a digital scar. There is no sender address, just a blinking cursor and a single line of text. Ref, post ID 892201. SILK. Your blood turns to ice water. You recognize the format instantly. It is a thread ID from the Silk Road forums. The room seems to tilt. You look at the Ethernet cable plugged into the back of your terminal. You look at the router lights blinking in the corner. This message did not come through the department email server. It was pushed directly to your workstation. Chen, you say. Your voice sounds hollow, like it is coming from someone else. Chen, look at this. Chen leans in, squinting. His face goes slack. That is impossible, Chen whispers. To push a message to a specific terminal inside the precinct, they would need administrative privileges, or a back door we do not know about. The federal agent's voice echoes in your memory. They watch the news. He was wrong. They are not watching the news. They are watching you. The killer knows your name. They know your IP address. They have breached the most secure law enforcement network in the city, just to send you a string of numbers. Miller is standing by the coffee pot, pouring sugar into a styrofoam cup. I am telling you, Miller says, oblivious to the catastrophe on your screen. We find this van. We find our guy. I can feel it. What would you do? Do you tell Miller to stop? Do you tell him that the van might be a decoy, that the real threat is ghosting through the firewall right in front of you? Do you pull him into the terrifying reality that the killer is hunting the detectives? Or do you let him go? Do you let him chase the physical lead, keeping him happy and focused, while you and Chen stare into the abyss alone? You make your choice. You type the ID string into your shadow file, bringing up the archived version of the forum. Let's see what he wants to show us. You whisper. Chen hits enter. The text loads. It is another story. Another submission to the creative writing section of the Silk Road. It is titled The Smoker's Cough. You start to read. It details a murder plan, but this one is not about a banker in a high-rise or a student in a dorm. The author describes the target with loving, hateful precision. He wears suits that do not fit quite right in the shoulders. The post reads, he smells like cheap tobacco and divorce. He thinks he is a hunter, but he is loud, lumbering prey. He stops at the same cart for a bagel every morning at 7:45. He never checks his blind spot. You stop reading. You can hear Miller stirring his coffee behind you. You can hear the heavy, wheezing breath he takes when his allergies are acting up. He is looking for a van, the post continues. But he should be looking at the man in the reflection of the shop window behind him. You turn around slowly. Miller is taking a sip of his coffee, looking at the map on the wall, completely unaware that he is not just investigating the case anymore. He is the case. You are standing in the middle of the squad room, the noise of ringing telephones and clacking keyboards washing over you. But you hear none of it. All you can hear is the blood rushing in your ears. You look at Miller. He is humming a tune from a radio commercial, adjusting his tie in the reflection of the blackened window. He looks vibrant. He looks ready. He has absolutely no idea that he is a walking corpse. The profile on your screen is not just a threat, it is a script, and Miller is about to walk onto the stage. You stand up, your chair scraping loudly against the linoleum. You have to stop him. But how do you explain this? If you tell him about the linguistic cluster, the shadow investigation, or the breach on your terminal, you are not just risking your badge. You are admitting to federal crimes on a police network. The captain is right down the hall. One word to him and you are in handcuffs before you can save anyone. Miller, you say. Your voice sounds too loud, too brittle. Miller turns, smiling. He holds up his keys. Do not try to slow me down, partner. That van is not going to park itself. Wait, you say, moving between him and the door. Just hold on. This feels wrong. The tip came in too easy. The witness saw a cigarette, but the suspect in the third case was a non-smoker. It does not fit the pattern. Miller's smile fades, replaced by the weary patience of a veteran dealing with a rookie. He steps closer, lowering his voice. You are spooked, Miller says. It is not a question. The feds came in here, rattled your cage, and now you are seeing ghosts in the machine. Look, I know you like your computer models. I know you think the answer is in the data. But out there, that is where the job happens. I have a physical plate. I have a location. I am going to do my job. He claps a heavy hand on your shoulder. It feels like a goodbye. Stay here, he says. Run your background checks. I will call you when I have the cuffs on him. He walks past you. You watch him go. You want to scream at him to stop, to tell him that the physical plate is just cheese in a mousetrap. But the words die in your throat. The elevator doors close, swallowing him whole. The feeling of helplessness is physical. It is a weight in your stomach, heavy and cold. You are watching a man drive into a buzzsaw because he trusts the asphalt more than he trusts the algorithm. You turn to Chen. He is staring at you, his face pale. He read the profile too. He knows we cannot let him go alone, Chen whispers. We are not going to, you reply. You open the bottom drawer of your desk. Underneath a stack of old takeout menus, you have a magnetic vehicle tracker. It is strictly off. The book's equipment. Something you seized from a private investigator 6 months ago and never logged into evidence. You toss it to Chen. His car is still in the lot, you say. Get it on the rear wheel well. I will patch into the cellular triangulation software. This is illegal, Chen says, but he is already standing up. If they catch us pinging a fellow officer, if we do not do it, he dies, you say. Chen nods once and runs for the stairs. 10 minutes later, you are huddled around a single laptop in the corner of the room, shielded from the rest of the squad by a wall of filing cabinets. A map of New York City glows on the screen. A single blue dot pulses on the grid. It is moving. You watch the dot slide through the digital arteries of Manhattan. It crosses the grid, block by block, heading east. You feel a strange, terrified sense of control returning. As long as you can see the dot, he is still alive. You are the guardian angel looking down from the cloud. Where is he going? Chen asks. The tip said the van was seen in Midtown. He is following the plate hit, you say. Your eyes locked on the screen. The patrol unit must have flagged the van moving out of the city. The dot merges onto the Queensboro Bridge. It leaves the dense, logical grid of Manhattan and enters the sprawling industrial confusing of Queens. Imagine if this happened to you. Imagine watching your best friend reduced to a pixel, moving steadily toward the edge of the map. You want to call him. You pick up your phone a dozen times, but you put it down. If you call him, he will know you are tracking him. He will stop to argue. He will be distracted. And if the killer is waiting, distraction is death. The dot exits the bridge and turns into Long Island City. In 2011, this part of the city is not yet a landscape of glass condos and coffee shops. It is a graveyard of industry. It is abandoned factories, rusted rail yards, and silence. It is the kind of place where people go to do things they do not want anyone to see. The warehouse complex on Borden Avenue, you realize. The old sugar refinery. The dot slows down. It creeps along the waterfront, where the streetlights are broken and the shadows are long. Why would the van be there? Chen asks. Because he wants Miller to be there, you answer. The blue dot turns off the main road and enters the gray block of the refinery complex. It moves deeper into the maze of brick and iron. Then, it stops. You lean closer to the screen. You hold your breath waiting for the dot to wiggle, to turn around, to back up. It sits there, motionless. Call him, Chen says, panic rising in his voice. Forget protocol. Call him now. You dial Miller's number. You press the phone to your ear. You hear the ringing tone. Once, twice. On the screen, a second icon appears next to the vehicle tracker, the indicator for Miller's cellular signal. It is blinking green. Then the ringing stops. It does not go to voicemail. It just cuts. On the map, the cellular icon blinks once more, turns red, and vanishes. The signal is gone, you say. Dead zone, Chen asks. But he knows the answer. No, you say. The network is strong there. Someone just killed the connection. You are staring at the static map. Miller is alone in a derelict refinery with a killer who knows exactly what size suit he wears. The captain is 50 feet away in his office, drinking coffee. What would you do? Do you run to the captain's office, confess to the illegal tracking, the shadow investigation, and the breach, hoping he can scramble a SWAT team before it is too late? You would lose your badge. You might go to prison, but you would have the full force of the New York Police Department behind you. Or do you realize that a SWAT team will take 20 minutes to assemble and another 20 to get through traffic? Do you realize that Miller does not have 40 minutes? Do you grab your keys and your service weapon, run out to your car, and drive into the trap yourself, hoping that 2 detectives can survive what one cannot? You look at the dark screen. You look at the door. You make your choice. Keep tracking the car, you tell Chen. If that dot moves, you radio dispatch. Where are you going? Chen asks. You do not answer. You are already running. The tires of your sedan scream against the asphalt as you tear across the Queensboro Bridge. You have killed the siren, but the red and blue lights traverse the steel girders like panic trapped in a cage. Below you, the black water of the East River churns, indifferent to the race against time happening above it. You grip the steering wheel so tightly your knuckles turn white. Every procedural instinct you possess is screaming at you to pick up the radio handset. You should call Central. You should roll the emergency service unit. You should flood this industrial wasteland with so much blue light that no shadow can survive. But you do not do it. The killer's message was specific. This is not a crime. It is a duel. If you bring the cavalry, Miller pays the price. You are betting a man's life on your ability to read the psychology of a ghost you have never met. You skid off the ramp into Long Island City. The streetlights here are yellow and sickly, illuminating rows of shuttered warehouses and chain-link fences topped with razor wire. The silence is profound. It is not the quiet of peace. It is the quiet of holding one's breath. You spot it. Miller's unmarked Ford stands alone in the center of a gravel lot, flanked by the skeletal remains of a brick factory. You slam the car into park and draw your weapon. The air smells of ozone and rotting river weeds. You approach Miller's car in a tactical crouch, sweeping the darkness with your gun barrel. The driver's side door is slightly ajar. The interior dome light is on, casting a weak glow on the empty seat. You peer inside. The keys are still in the ignition. His coffee cup is in the holder, steam still rising from the plastic lid. It is the classic tableau of an abduction. He was lured out, or he was taken. Dread, heavy and suffocating, settles in your chest. You are too late. Then you see the van. It is parked 50 yards away, tucked into the shadow of a loading dock. It matches the partial plate. It matches the description. But something is wrong. The sliding side door is wide open, inviting you in. You move toward it, your heart hammering against your ribs. You expect a slaughterhouse. You expect plastic sheeting, surgical tools, the metallic tang of blood. You steel yourself for the sight of your partner's body. You clear the entrance, gun raised. It is empty of bodies. The back of the van is not a kill room. It is a control center. A folding table is bolted to the floor. On it sits a thick black laptop connected to a heavy-duty marine battery. The only light in the cavernous van comes from the screen. You lower your weapons slowly. You step inside. The screen displays a live video feed. The image is crisp, high definition. It shows a stark, white room. There are no windows. In the center of the room, sitting on a simple wooden chair, is Miller. He is alive. He looks confused, rubbing his temples, looking around the white space as if he woke up in a dream. He stands up, walks to a wall, and touches it. He is unharmed. A wave of relief hits you so hard it nearly knocks you over. You place a hand on the van wall to steady yourself. He is not dead. This is not a murder. On the laptop screen below the video feed, a chat window blinks into existence. It is the interface of a Silk Road private message. Black text scrawls across the white background. He followed the bait. You followed him. You both broke protocol. I win. The skin on the back of your neck prickles. You spin around, checking the dark lot outside the van, but there is no one. The killer is not here. He is watching you. He has been watching you the entire time. He orchestrated this. He did not want to kill Miller. He wanted to capture him to prove that he could. He wanted to demonstrate that your badge and your gun are useless against his algorithm. You look back at the screen. The cursor blinks, mocking you. Do not look for him. You will not find the room in time. The air supply is limited, but he has enough for a few hours. Enough time for you to make a choice. Your fingers hover over the keyboard. You want to type threats. You want to beg. But you know neither will work. New text appears. There is another, a true believer. Post ID. 8C4, a 2B0F. Her time is running out. I will give you the address, but you must come alone. Leave your phone. Leave your partner. Come and meet the man you have been hunting. You freeze. You recognize that ID. It is a user from the forum logs. A young woman who asked questions about encryption. Someone who seemed curious, perhaps too curious. The killer is expanding the circle. He is not just targeting law enforcement. He is harvesting the community that grew in the dark. Here is the nightmare scenario. What would you do? Do you obey the monster? Do you trust that he will let Miller live if you walk into his next trap? You would be leaving your partner in a sealed box, location unknown, to save a stranger who might already be dead. Or do you call for backup now? You could secure the van, trace the signal, and perhaps find Miller before the air runs out. But if you do that, the true believer dies. The killer has made that promise clear. You stand in the cold metal shell of the van, the light of the laptop illuminating the sweat on your brow. Before you can decide, the chat window flashes again. It is a reply to a question you have not asked, but one that has been screaming in your mind since you found the first body. Who am I? The text reads, you told me. You found the pattern in the data, the semicolon, the whence. I was just a fan of the art until you showed me how to read the artist's signature. You did not find me. You created me. Now, come and meet your collaborator. The realization hits you like a physical blow. The profile you built, the linguistic quirks you identified, the specific psychological framework you presented to the captain. You were not describing a killer who already existed. You were broadcasting a blueprint. Someone out there in the dark, looking for purpose, saw your profile and decided to wear it like a mask. You did not catch a monster. You manufactured one. The cursor blinks, waiting. You make your choice in the span of a single heartbeat. It is a cold, calculated gamble that makes your stomach turn. But you do not hesitate. You reach into your glove box and retrieve the burner phone, a cheap plastic thing you bought for moments when you needed to be off the grid. You type a single text message to Detective Chen. It contains the GPS coordinates of the van in Long Island City and one-word trap. Next, you text your captain. I am meeting him. That is all. You place your official service phone on the dashboard of the van, leaving it bathing in the blue light of the laptop. You are severing your digital leash. If Miller dies because you were too slow, that is on your soul. But if you do not walk through this door now, the killing never stops. You drive back across the river. The city looks different now. It is no longer a collection of buildings and streets. It is a circuit board, and you are finally seeing the electricity that runs through it. The address from the chat leads you to 5th Avenue, the New York Public Library. The massive stone lions guarding the entrance seem to watch you with judgment as you ascend the steps. The building is technically closed, the heavy doors locked to the public, but the side service entrance is unlatched, just as he promised it would be. You step inside. The silence here is different from the silence in the industrial park. That was the silence of a grave. This is the silence of a cathedral. The air smells of dust, old paper, and the slow decay of history. You walk through the Astor Hall, your footsteps echoing on the marble like gunshots. The shadows of the arches stretch out like grasping fingers. The text said the philosophy section. You navigate the labyrinth of the Rose main reading room. It is a cavernous space, illuminated by the golden glow of the chandeliers that hang like inverted crowns. Rows of long oak tables sit empty, waiting for scholars who are asleep in their beds, except for one. At the far end of the room, tucked into a small wooden study carrel, a man sits. He is reading a hardcover book, his posture relaxed, his finger tracing a line of text. You draw your weapon, but you do not raise it. You walk toward him, the distance closing with agonizing slowness. He looks up. The face is familiar. It takes your brain a moment to place it because he is out of context. He is not a monster. He is not a scarred eccentric. He is Evans, the junior technician from Chenchen's cybercrimes unit. The quiet kid with the thick glasses and the bad posture who has been sitting 20 feet away from you for weeks, processing hard drives and running background checks. He is the ghost in the machine, and he has been haunting you from the desk next door. You are late, Evans says. His voice is calm, devoid of the stutter he affects around the captain. He closes the book. It is a collection of Plato. Stand up, you command. Hands where I can see them. Evans smiles. It is a terrifying expression because it is genuine. There is no malice in it, only pride. He stands slowly, smoothing out his wrinkled button-down shirt. "You figured it out," he says, sounding like a teacher praising a student. "Eventually. I was worried the clues were too subtle, but you have an eye for the aesthetic." "Why?" you ask. "It is the only word that matters." "Why?" Evans repeats. He walks around the table, ignoring your gun. "Because you were looking for it. I watched you day after day. You would stare at the screen, looking for patterns in the chaos. You wanted a narrative. You needed the violence to make sense. You needed a villain worthy of your intellect." He stops a few feet away from you. "I was just a lurker on the Silk Road," he confesses. "I read the forums. I read the manifestos of people like Agathon. They were brilliant, but they were abstract, pure theory. Then I saw you building your profile. You talked about the artist's signature. You talked about the misplaced semicolon. That was not me originally. That was just a typo. But you gave it meaning. You called it a calling card." He taps his temple. "So I adopted it. I became the killer you were already hunting. I did not create the monster, detective. You did. I just filled the suit. The horror of it washes over you. This is not a mastermind criminal. This is a lonely, invisible young man who found validation in your attention. He killed people not because he hated them, but because he wanted to impress you. He wanted to be the Moriarty to your Sherlock." "I am not Agathon," Evans continues, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Agathon is real. He is an ex-academic, a paranoid agoraphobe who has not left his basement in Seattle since 2004. He wrote the code. He wrote the philosophy. I just executed the program." Evans takes a step closer. "I can give him to you. I have his IP address. I have his encryption keys. I know where the servers are buried." He holds his hands out, palms up. "Let me walk out of here. I disappear. I go back to the deep web, and you never see me again. In exchange, I give you the source. You can stop the ideology. You can burn the root. Here is the choice that will define the rest of your life. The man standing before you has blood on his hands. He murdered the girl in the shipping container. He killed the courier, but he is just a symptom. If you arrest him now, the case closes, but the virus remains out there, spreading. If you let him go, you betray every oath you ever swore, but you might stop 1,000 future murders. What would you do? Do you settle for the man in the room, or do you gamble everything to catch the devil you cannot see? You open your mouth to speak, but the air in the room suddenly shifts. A flicker of movement catches your eye from the mezzanine level above the reading room. It is a subtle shift in the shadows, the glint of light on glass. A tiny red dot appears on Evans's chest, right over his heart. "Federal agents, do not move." The voice booms from the darkness above, shattering the quiet. It is the voice of the Department of Justice agent who warned you off the case weeks ago. Your stomach drops. They did not trust you to drop it. They followed you. And now, you are standing at gunpoint next to the most wanted man in New York, looking very much like an accomplice. The red laser dot on Evans's chest does not wave. For a terrible second, the library holds its breath, suspended between a massacre and an arrest. Then, the heavy boots of the Federal Bureau of Investigation tactical team thunder across the marble floor of the Rose main reading room. They move like a singular, armored organism, swarming the small wooden carrel where the killer sits. Evans does not resist. He does not scream or reach for a weapon. As they wrench his arms behind his back and force his face against the table, he turns his head to look at you. His glasses are askew, sliding off his nose, but his eyes are lucid. "Dewey Decimal," he says, his voice cutting through the shouting of the agents. 188.5. Then he is hauled away, a fragile figure disappearing into a wall of Kevlar and aggression. The Department of Justice agent, the one who warned you to stay away, marches toward you. His face is a mask of controlled fury, but beneath it, there is a grudging respect. He knows you led them here. He knows his surveillance of your car was the only reason they arrived in time. He tells you that you are lucky to not be in handcuffs yourself, but he grants you a moment of professional courtesy. He permits you to look. You walk to the stacks, 188.5, Stoic Philosophy. You scan the shelves until you find the gap where a book should be, and right next to it, the volume Evans was reading. You pull it from the shelf. It is heavy, bound in dark cloth. You open it. Someone has hollowed out the pages. Resting in the square cavity is a black USB drive. It feels light in your hand, an insignificant piece of plastic that weighs as much as a dozen human lives. Back at the precinct under the harsh fluorescent lights of the cybercrimes unit, Detective Chen plugs the drive into an air-gapped laptop. The encryption is sophisticated, but it is not designed to keep you out. It is designed to let you in. The files unfurl on the screen. There are no hit lists or Bitcoin wallets here. There are journals, thousands of pages of scanned handwritten notes. There are manifestos, and there is a name, Dr. Alistair Finch. You recognize the name from a cold case file 5 years ago. Finch was a philosophy professor at Columbia University, a man who was stripped of his tenure for radical teachings. He believed that modern morality was a cage, a domestication of the human animal, and that true freedom required the indulgence of our darkest, most violent impulses. He vanished after the scandal. Everyone assumed he had taken his own life. Instead, he went digital. He became Agathon. He became the voice in the dark that whispered to lonely, invisible men like Evans. Finch wrote the code. Evans just compiled it in flesh and blood. The drive contains one final piece of metadata, a geolocation tag from a satellite uplink. It points to a remote cabin deep in the Adirondack Mountains. You do not sleep. By dawn, you are in the passenger seat of an armored truck, watching the mist roll over the pine trees. Miller is with you, looking pale but resolute. He refused to sit this one out. The state police SWAT team surrounds the cabin. It is a small, rotting structure that looks like a scar on the beautiful landscape. Breach, the team leader screams. The door splinters inward. You surge into the room, weapon raised, expecting gunfire, expecting a final stand. The cabin is empty. The stove is cold. The dust on the floor is undisturbed. Finch is not here. He has been gone for days, perhaps weeks, but he left something for you. You lower your weapon and look at the walls. Every inch of the wooden interior is covered in paper. It is a collage of obsession. Newspaper clippings of the murders, printouts of forum discussions from the Silk Road, maps of the crime scenes, and in the center of the wall, directly above the empty desk, is a photograph. It is a high-resolution print of your official New York Police Department identification photo. Your face is circled in red ink. The horror hits you not in the gut, but in the mind. Evans was the killer, but Finch was the audience. He was not hiding from you. He was watching you. He was studying your investigation, tracking your progress, delighting in every connection you made. You thought you were the hunter, but you were just a character in his story. On the desk, a single laptop sits open. The power light is blinking. You approach it. The floorboards creaking under your boots. The screen is active. It displays a single video window. It is a live feed. You lean closer, squinting at the grainy image. It shows a street corner, a gray building with concrete steps. People are walking in and out. You see a patrol car pull away from the curb. It takes a moment for your brain to process the geometry. That is not just any building. That is your precinct. That is the front door you walked out of 6 hours ago. Dr. Finch is not in the woods. He is somewhere in the city. He is watching the police station. He is watching the camera that watches the police station. And now, he is watching you realize it. The screen flickers, and a text box appears over the video feed. Thank you for the ending. You stare at the cursor blinking at the end of the sentence. You stop the physical murders. Evans is in custody. The knife has been taken off the board, but the hand that guided it is free. This presents you with a choice that feels heavier than the gun on your hip. You have the killer. The case, technically, is closed. The bureaucracy will be satisfied. You can walk away telling yourself that you cannot arrest a man for his thoughts, that the immediate danger is over. Or you can accept the invitation. You can dedicate yourself to hunting a ghost who has never spilled a drop of blood himself, but whose words turn ordinary men into butchers. What would you do? Do you accept the victory you can hold in your hands, or do you step into the abyss to chase an idea? You look at the live feed again. A figure in a dark coat walks past the camera, pausing for just a fraction of a second to look directly into the lens before vanishing into the crowd. The manacles are cold, the cell door is locked, and the press conference is finished. The completionist killer, Evans, is now just a number in the state penitentiary system. You should feel relief. You should feel the satisfaction of a job well done. But as you sit in the quiet of your apartment, staring at the blank screen of your television, you feel only a hollow ache in your chest. You realize the truth too late. In the history books, you know, the Silk Road was merely a black market, a digital alleyway for contraband. But in this timeline, it became something far worse. It became a stage. Dr. Finch did not want to commit the perfect crime. He wanted to write the perfect tragedy, and he needed a protagonist to give it meaning. That was never Evans. It was always you. By catching the killer, you validated the philosophy. You proved that his twisted narrative could bleed into reality, that a man could be manipulated by text alone, and that law enforcement could be directed like actors in a play. You did not destroy the monster. You published his work. Now, Dr. Finch is out there, a ghost in the wires, watching the news reports with a satisfied smile. He knows that ideas are harder to kill than people. He knows that right now, in the silence of your living room, you are thinking about him. And that means he is still winning. If you enjoy staring into the abyss until it blinks, join our ranks. Subscribe to Concrete Fear, like this video, and share it with someone who thinks they are safe. Leave a comment below. Would you have closed the case or chased the ghost? Until next time, remember that the most terrifying stories are not the ones that end. They are the ones that follow you home.